Everyone, and welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian, and I'm streaming to you from beautiful Budapest. I hope everybody has had a good week and is looking forward to a fantastic weekend. Welcome, members. Hi, Milind. Hi, Samuel. Welcome to our member Allah as well. For new members, make sure to send me an email so that I can hook you up with your perks. New members, you can send your email to adrian@aehelp.com. Hi, Abhishek. In this class, we are looking at task 1 writing. We're looking at a flow chart. We're going to compose a band 9 essay. Flow charts are one type of question that you could get in your academic IELTS exam, not in your general. In your general, the questions are usually have to do with writing a letter. For that, please visit our General IELTS Help YouTube channel. Okay. Hi, Nick Hill. So, of course, as usual, our materials are presented to you by aehelp.com for lots of help with the academic IELTS exam. Visit us there, spend a couple dollars to learn a lot of great information. And for the general IELTS, visit us at gieltshelp.com. That's generalieltshelp.com. Again, on both of those channels, we have, or both of those websites, we have lots and lots of information to help you. This is our academic website here with the blue background. You can click that big red button to join us there, get access to all of our HD videos, practice exams, and interactive courses, as well as an application for your mobile. Same idea for general IELTS, except it's a green background at gieltshelp.com. We're one of the only companies that separate the two versions of the test. It makes sense. People who study for academic IELTS should not be studying general IELTS task 1 or reading content. And again, you can click that big red button to join our premium package there. Hi, Ois. Welcome aboard. Okay, everyone. So let's get going today. In 90 minutes, we will have the listening part 3 and 4 for the exam that we started yesterday. Of course, everybody is welcome to watch this presentation of task 1, and everybody will be able to join the chat in the next presentation as well. And then we'll have some more classes tomorrow also. Let's take a look at this IELTS task 1 question of the day. So here we go. You get to the writing section of your IELTS exam. You finish the listening, you finish the reading. You're almost 2 hours into your exam at this point. So it's probably a good idea to just take 10 seconds, take a couple of deep breaths, refocus yourself, and remember the steps and strategies to get those high band scores on the writing section. Okay, so don't race too fast to get through the IELTS. Remember that slow and steady wins the race. Okay, so stay focused. Okay, so you open up your writing section of your exam. You should always start with task 1, and it says you should spend about 20 minutes on this task. They don't tell you when that time is up, so make sure to check the time. There should be a clock in the room. Don't spend more than 20 minutes on the task. So let's read. The chart below shows the steps in the manufacturing of electronic products at Sparks Inc. Describe the main features and make comparisons where relevant. You should write at least 150 words. That means minimum 150 words. There is no maximum. You're only limited by time and space. So try not to write huge letters so that if you have good English, you can really write a good, complete essay. Keep in mind, everyone, that a Band 8, Band 9, Task 1 will be much closer to 200 words, not just exactly 150. Okay, somebody with good fluent English who knows what they're doing for task 1 should be able to write about 200 words in the 20 minutes with even a couple minutes left for review and fixing maybe some small mistakes. Okay, so, but you have to write at least 150. They do count the words. They'll take the average of a few lines and then they'll multiply to see how many words you have. If it looks like you're less than 150, you will lose marks for task completion, okay? So you want to reach that 150 word count, but don't take time from task 2. Task 2 is worth more, okay? So let's take a look at the chart for today. Now, it's a big chart. Hopefully you can clearly see the words here. If you can't, let me see my feedback screen. Yeah, you can kind of see it. If it doesn't make sense, I'll help you out, but it should make sense. Let me see if I brighten it a little bit. Maybe it'll be better for you. Okay, so let me just do a little brightening on the screen. Maybe it'll be a little bit more visible. There we go. All right. Yeah, I can zoom in a little bit more. Somebody's like, can you zoom it more? Yeah, sure, I can do that. Get it to fill out the whole screen just about, so I can still scroll around. All right. So there you go. Okay, you don't see the full flow chart, and that's okay. The reason why is because with flow charts, you flow with the chart. So your essay will flow with the chart. Okay, that's the most coherent way to write about it. So usually that means going from top down if it's a vertical flow chart, and if it's a horizontal flow chart, then you go from left to right. Okay, so here we have a vertical flow chart, so we're going top to bottom. Okay, so it's totally okay if you don't see the whole flow chart. We'll go through each of these phases or steps or stages one at a time. So for right now, we're just going to look at what's going on here. We have a little legend for the arrows here, which is nice. Okay, so it says flow of manufacturing process. It's a black arrow. And then for the flow of information feedback, it's a blue arrow. Okay, now in the paper-based exam, it will probably be just a different looking arrow because they don't have color so much, which is okay. And then here we see kind of two elements to start the process. And then as we go down, we see a number of other steps. Now, members, what do we do for the overview? So what do we do for the overview? Okay, Preeti, it should be visible now. My feedback screen, it's quite visible for me. So maybe adjust your device if you're not able to see it. Revers, thanks for your super chat donation. In order to become a member, you have to click the join button beside the subscribe button. If you don't see that, send me an email and I can help you. Okay, and I love that cool little sticker that you put there too. Okay, so Abhishek says that for the overview, we have to paraphrase. Yeah, that's partly true, Abhishek. We have to paraphrase and do something else, right? Always remember that other element. Yeah, Jainil, very good. So we have to paraphrase with the details. Okay, yeah, exactly, Beckjan, with more detail. And then what else goes into the overview? Not so much a unique feature, Abhishek, but the key feature. That's right, the main features. Okay, so to do that, you have to look at the graph that's presented here. Okay, so this is clearly a flow chart. And one of the easiest main features for a flowchart is just looking at the number of steps or stages in the process, okay? So we have, or number of components or elements in the process, okay? I'm going to give you lots of vocabulary so that you have good lexical resource. So here we have 1, 2, 3, okay? 4, 5, 6. Always go top down, left, right. Okay, just so that you have a clear mind. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so left, right, top, down. So far we have 10 on the left. I'm not going to go this way, but I'm going to go back to the top and go right. Okay, so 11, 12, 13, 14, okay, with advertising. Everybody else counted 14 as well? Hopefully you did. Okay, so this flowchart has 14 elements or 14 components to it. Okay? All right. Now, of course, the other main feature that we notice is there's two types of information or two types of flow. One is the manufacturing process, and the other is the information feedback. Okay, so that's what we want to keep in mind, are those two pieces for the main features. All right. Okay, so now we have all of the information that we need to paraphrase the question, give it some more details, and indicate the main feature. Okay, so here's the original question again. The chart below shows the steps in the manufacturing of electronic products at Sparks Inc. Describe the main features and make comparisons where relevant. So I'm going to do that now with this information. You do the same, and then we'll compare. There's different ways to do this, not just one way. The idea is to get the information complete and correct. Okay, so I'm going to write, give you a moment to do the same, and then we'll compare. All right, so there is my paraphrase with my key features. Okay, let's see what you've come up with, and then I'll read through mine and we'll compare and see how we make out. Okay, all right. So Samuel says the given chart depicts the stages in manufacturing electronic devices at Sparks Inc. Explain the salient features with comparison. So Samuel, here you don't have to paraphrase that question element because that's always the same, okay? So in this case, we're not just planning, but we're actually writing the essay right away. Samuel, in task 1, you don't really have to do a lot of planning, just a little bit in the next step, because all of the information is given. It's an expository essay, so all of the information is there. You just have to take it, interpret it, and then put it together in a clear way, okay, as if you're giving a presentation to a class in a business class, for example, in university, okay? Abhishek says the given flowchart depicts the 14 steps in the mass production of electronic articles at Sparks Inc. That's very good, Abhishek, and then include, of course, the main feature, okay? Ois says the following chart explains the whole process of making electronic items with 14 steps. Okay, period. You don't need to say for the process, Ois, because you already said that, the whole process, right? So careful not to repeat the same words, members, in the same kind of sentence, okay? Careful with word repetition or wordiness, it's called. Okay, Millen says the flowchart illustrates the process used by Sparks Inc. to produce electronic goods. There are a total of 14 parts combined to complete this system. Okay, so again, don't repeat process, Millen, and don't forget to have good connectives. So there are. Okay. All right. Janelle says the given flowchart depicts the 14 stages in the manufacturing process of electronic goods at Sparks Inc. and then the main feature. Janelle, a little bit more. Preeti says the given flowchart depicts the 14 stages of making electronics at Sparks. Preeti, make sure that the S is capital because it's the name of this company, right? So if you don't have capitalization there, that would be considered a mistake right away in your first sentence, all right? Beckjohn says the given blueprint depicts 15 stages of manufacturing electronic equipment. Furthermore, steps are linked in two ways: the flow of manufacturing and information in Sparks Inc. Yes, Beckjohn, be specific. Here, instead of blueprint, I would use flowchart because it's more accurate, okay, and it's not included in the question. So here is let me do a little bit smaller, just a tiny bit, so it all fits with the punctuation. So this is my overview here, okay? It's not too complex here. It's fairly straightforward, okay? All right, so this flowchart is usually hyphenated. It's a single noun. So this flowchart shows the creation of electronic goods at Sparks Inc. Immediately, it is clear that there are 14 unique components in the process involving either the production process or the information feedback. Okay? All right. So notice how I'm using either or in this case. That nice correlative conjunction to explain the two ways that the stages are connected. Okay? So Abhishek, you can use blueprint, okay, or system, but it's just a flow chart. So you should describe it as a flow chart. It's not given in the question, so you're showing lexical resource. This is a flow chart, okay. If the chart, Abhishek, goes from left to right, if it's what's called a horizontal flow chart, then it's also called a fish chart. So sometimes you call those fish charts that are horizontal and not perpendicular. Okay. All right. So that's good. Okay, we're fine here. Now, what do I do next? So, what is my next step? What do I need to do? Okay, now, I actually think that if you get a flowchart in your academic IELTS exam, it's kind of lucky because in many ways it's easier to write about than other types of graphs and charts. And maybe because of that reason, it's a little bit less common. Okay, they tend to be slightly easier. So Abhishek says, analyze the points. All right, Abhishek, so yeah, you're right. Let's analyze the points. Now, here, the analysis is really simple, because all we're doing here is going from top down, left to right, okay? So the analysis with flowcharts, that's the simple part, because that's a give me, okay? All you have to do is start at the beginning, okay? Just remember that in English, information, just like writing, moves from top down, left to right, okay? It's different than some other languages. So always start top down, left to right. Okay, so here the analysis is simple. We just kind of move through the process. But we do have to pay attention to one important point here. We have 14 different stages in this process. So what do we need to pay attention to before we begin? And this is common. So you can get flowcharts and diagrams in the IELTS where there are a good number of steps, like 14, 15 steps. So what do you have to remember so that you don't make a big mistake? There's something that should kind of come to mind here and go, oh yeah, okay, I got to really pay attention to this so I don't do something silly. Yeah, very good. So Beckjohn's on the right track. So Beckjohn's saying you have to kind of combine them. So you have to link the steps as much as possible. And hopefully many of you are thinking about that also. If you're writing a sentence for each one, it will be way too long and you will run out of time before you need to start task 2. Okay, so the key or the big trick to doing well with these flowcharts is really using your linking words and using clever thinking to combine them. Okay, so you need to combine and link the phases as much as possible so that you don't run out of space or time. Okay, so I'm just going to make a note of that. Keep that in mind when you're practicing these at home. Okay, and I think some of you probably already have, so you're like, oh yeah, if I write each of these steps separately, that's going to be a really long essay, right? So tip, flowcharts and diagrams that have many stages in task 1, you must combine and link the elements in a clever way so that you do not run out of time and space in your test, okay? Time and space. Okay, cool. All right, so we're going to do that, okay? So here, analysis really simple. We're just going from top to bottom. So let's do this, and I'm going to kind of guide you, members, through this process. You're going to tell me what to write, and then I'll tell you if it's good or if I would do it differently. Again, there's more than one way to do this, so analyses. Let's do this, and then of course I'll teach you some linking words and other vocabulary. So we're going to start with these two components, raw materials and manufacturing components, and then storage. So you should be looking at these three initially, okay? That should be your point analysis number 1. So please create some sentences for me. Of course, be unique, use your own words. Make sure you spell words that are given correctly, and then use your linking words. So start your sentence, start your analysis, and then I will let you know if you're on the right track, okay? So this is where we start. Raw materials, manufacturing components, storage, okay? And think about your verbs as well, okay? Using the correct verbs is really important. All right. So give me some sentences. I'm going to do the same since you have a little bit of a head start. Okay. All right. So let's see what you come up with. Try not to look at my sentence, so try to do your own sentence first. I'll keep bringing up the chart so you can think about it. All right. And type fast, students. Remember, you want to practice your fluency as well here. So Millen says raw materials are combined with the already manufactured parts to make up the storage. Millen, visualize this. So they're electronic goods. You probably have some raw materials like metal and other such plastic and so on. And then you have some manufactured parts like wires, chips, and so on, okay? And then probably these parts, firstly, are carried to storage, okay? Abhishek says, looking into more detail, firstly, both raw materials and manufactured components are deposited in storage. You deposit in or into storage, okay? Abhishek, don't say look or don't write looking into more detail. It's unnecessary, okay? It's just the first step here. So Abhishek, start with firstly, okay? Otherwise, it's wordy and awkward. So firstly, both raw materials and manufactured components are deposited into storage, okay? That will be better. Bekjan says, to begin with, it is clear that the process of making digital products commences by combining both raw materials and manufactured components into storage. Very nice writing, Bekjan. Very clear grammar, accurate use of prepositions. Good starting or leading expression to begin with. One thing, Bekjan, be really careful. You have 14 components here linking all over the place. So you might not need to write something like commence by combining, okay? I would maybe shorten that part a little bit just so that I don't run out of time. You want to be concise here, Bekjan, being concise so that you can get all of your ideas onto paper. Okay. All right, students, keep going. We're going to move along as well. So now we're going to look at this step here, or these two steps. You have storage, and then storage moves to production and planning, and this is where we have our first feedback loop. Okay, and the feedback loop goes from production planning to storage. So we're going to have to create a sentence with this or these two elements here as well. So those of you who are done the first, start working on this one. I'll check a couple of your classmates and then I'll do the same. All right. Ois says the first stage of the manufacturing process is raw materials, then the manufacturing, both of them gather in one storage. Ois, that's a bit flawed grammatically and with language use, so it's confusing. So the first stage of the process is gathering raw materials together with manufactured goods into storage. That's how you need to write that, Ois. Okay. Janiel says first raw materials and generated parts are deposited into storage. Yeah, Janiel, generated parts is okay. Students, you don't need to paraphrase the actual labels of the stages. So you don't have to paraphrase production planning. It's easy to make a mistake, and there's no point in doing that. It's much more important to have the right kinds of connections among the ideas, okay? You can get a band 9 without paraphrasing these. So just keep these the same. Think about it. If you worked at this company, you wouldn't really want to paraphrase this. You want everybody to use the same notation or the same expression so that nobody gets confused, right? Okay. Nick Hill says to commence with, it is evident that both raw materials and manufactured components are stored in storage. Nick Hill, simplify. Manufactured components are stored. That's it. You don't have to say stored in storage. They're stored. If they're stored, it is storage. Okay? All right. Millen says after the stored parts are passed on to production planning and feedback is sent to storage. Yeah. Okay, very good, Millen. Again, simplify. So we're really working on this being concise. Onto, Millen, is one word, onto. Okay, O-N-T-O, all as one. Okay. All right. All right, so here is my next sentence, okay? Shrink it a little bit. Okay, so from storage, the materials are moved to production planning from where information is looped back to storage, okay? So that's describing that step. Notice, of course, that here in this type of an essay with a flowchart, we're going to use a lot of passive voice. Why are we using the passive voice so much for a lot of these steps? And this is where it's really important. This is the one challenging part of process essays, especially in this kind of a question where it's human manufacturing or human action. You have to write a lot of passive, not just active, but passive voice. Why is that? Why do we write a lot of sentences using the passive voice? Beckjen says in the following two stages, storage is connected with production planning, which sends information feedback to storage, right? You should say, Beckjen, where the feedback is going, Okay, it's not intuitive, it's not clear otherwise. Baekjun says because there is no human. There could be a human, Baekjun. It's not that there is no human, it's that we do not know the agent of the action, right? So you use the passive voice in English when we don't know the agent of the action or when the agent is not important in the action, okay? So we don't know who's doing it, okay? Could be robots, right? These days, a lot of production process involves the use of robots and not humans. So we can't say people move the product because we don't know if it's people, okay? All right, so we don't know the agent or the doer of the action, and so we don't include that. So we end up with the passive voice. So it's be and then the past participle, right? So be moved or are moved to production planning from where information is looped back. So be past participle, be verb, past participle, always paying attention to that. Don't make grammatical mistakes there, okay? All right, so far so good. Everybody's doing a good job so far. Okay, now from production planning, okay, we have assembly, we have inspection, we have testing, okay? So it's only at the testing phase, okay? Again, stage, step, phase, these are all different words that you can use. So it's only at the testing phase where we have some kind of a feedback going to design, okay? So in this case, I would combine my next sentence so that it includes assembly, inspection, testing, and design. So I would have all four of these stages or phases linked together in my next sentence. It makes sense to do this, okay? This is not where I would be writing multiple sentences. So this is where I can really save some time and be really concise to include these. So try that. Combine assembly, inspection, testing, and design in your next sentence. Okay? I'm going to do the same. So I'm going to start typing and then we'll compare. Okay? All right, so there are the steps again. Okay, let me get it in one shot there for you. So you have production planning, assembly, inspection, testing, and then you have that feedback going to design. Okay, let's see how you make out with that. All right, OS says after the storage, the production enters a new stage in production planning. This step prepares the production for inspection. Then the items are moved to testing. OS, you're spending too much time on the previous two steps. Don't do that. So be really careful, students, not to overlap your steps. We've already talked about production planning and storage, so we don't really want to focus too much on production planning. We want to get out of there as quickly as possible, okay? So we want to focus on these brand new stages or steps in the process in the sentence, okay? So Millen says after the assembled parts are inspected and tested, Feedback is sent to the design department. Okay, we don't know if it's a department, Millen, but otherwise your sentence is fantastic. It's really nice and concise and very accurate. So everybody have a look at Millen's sentence. It's really good. I really like it, Millen. So after the assembled parts are inspected and tested, comma, good use of comma there, feedback is sent to the design phase. Period. That is really good, Millen. Okay, that's some quality writing for this flow chart. Okay, Baekjun says after that there are 3 stages: assembly, inspection, and testing in this order, where materials go through and then looping information back to design. Okay, quite good, Baekjun. I would change a little bit the second half, but more or less quite good. Okay. Abhishek, moving forward, the phase after planning, testing, then inspection, testing. However, testing parts pass to design team for feedback. Abhishek, you have to rethink that sentence. It's really confusing. So that would be very awkward for your examiner. Okay. You're at a band 4.55 on that. So be careful. So if you want me to compare like band scores as the examiner would look at it, Abhishek, Millen's is like a band 8.5. Yours is like a band 5. Millen's is very concise and clear. Yours is very unclear and confusing. Okay, so coherence is really important. But I know you're being original, which is good. Just make sure you're accurate. Okay. All right. So here is my sentence after the production planning. That's all I do. Okay, it's just 1, 2, 3, 4 words. 2 of them is the name of the phase itself. So after the production planning, parts are passed to assembly, then inspection, and then testing. Look at this string here. It's just a very clear 1, 2, 3, right? So are passed to assembly, then inspection, and then testing, at which point feedback is provided to the design phase. Using which is a very good idea for these types of process essays. Of course, adjective clauses, descriptive clauses are very, very useful in task 1, especially in this type of flow chart. Okay. All right, so good. Now, we've reached packaging. Okay, so here we have packaging dispatch. I think maybe they made a spelling error with dispatch on this graph. It should be I. So dispatch and then sales. Okay, and then from sales, we go to market research. Now, some of you are probably going, okay, but there's feedback coming to packaging. Should you talk about this feedback arrow to packaging at this point? So is it a good idea to stop here and say that feedback comes in from market research to packaging? Or no? What do you think? Is it a good idea to talk about this coming into packaging? Baekjun says maybe later. Abhishek says no. Millen says yes. Okay, so that's common, that kind of confusion. Definitely don't talk about it. Okay, so I would not stop here. The loop, if you look at it as a loop, it's moving like this. Okay, so the loop moves like this. Okay, so this is the direction of the loop. So you don't want to write your essay like this. Okay, does that make sense? That's confusing. All right, so you'd want to go with the loop, okay, in your description as well. It's just much easier and it's much more logical. Okay, it would make sense to do it that way. So be really careful. Don't suddenly stop and go, oh, there's something happening here. I have to write about this. No, you don't. You can write about that later once you're up here in market research. Now, noticing that, you realize that this is a loop. And in 1, maybe 2 sentences, you can describe this whole loop into market research. Okay? So that makes the most sense. So always focus on your logic with flowcharts, okay? So go ahead and in 1 to 2 sentences, describe this flow of the process from packaging to dispatch to sales to market research and then feedback to packaging, okay? We'll maybe leave advertising as a separate component between market research, all right? Okay. Now, Beckton says, what about the feedback on the left side? Yeah, so very good question, Beckton. So the feedback from sales to market research, okay, here we have two types of feedback from sales. One is going this way to market research, and Beckton says, hey, ladies and gents, let's not forget about the feedback that's going here from sales to all the way back to production planning, right? And yeah, we definitely want to do that. We want to include that. So Beckjan, what's your suggestion? What kind of a connective should we use to describe these two feedback loops? What kind of a connective? Anybody else can answer that question too. So what kind of a connection or what kind of a connective word should we use for those two feedback loops? Beckjan says both and. I think that's okay, Beckjan. I might use a different one. Abhishek says not only but also. I think not only but also is better than both and. So not only but also is a good correlative. Both of you realize that it's a correlative conjunction that you should use there. Absolutely, I agree with that. So not only but also I think is a good pick. There's another good pick. And it's one that students often avoid or ignore, but it gets you points on the IELTS, and you're going to get higher band scores as well. Okay? So what I would write is maybe either or. So not only but also and either or are going to be the best ones here, I think. Okay? All right, so let's do that. Let's write that sentence. So going from testing to packaging to dispatch to sales and then market research, or back to the production planning. Okay. All right. Packaging, dispatch, and sales. Okay. Okay, so there is my sentence. Let me move back the graph so you can see it. There we go. Okay. All right, there. Yeah, so Preeti says, but either or shows only one option. Yeah, because it is only one. It only goes here or here. So it's kind of an either or, right? Some information goes to market research, some goes there. I see your argument, Preeti, for why either or might not be the best one. But I think it works well. I still think it works well because it goes here or there. Okay. Notice Preeti also used not only but also. Okay. Millen said tested products after being packed are dispatched for sales while feedback is sent combinedly to production planning and market research. Millen, that's good. Yeah, that works well. I really like, Millen, how what you're doing is you're taking the noun and you're turning it into a verb form because it is, right? And that makes sense in this case. Okay, that works well. Beckjan says after the products are packaged and then dispatched, they move to sales, at which point the information is fed back to both research and planning. Yeah, it's not feedback in this case, Beckjan, but it's fed back, okay? Or conveyed to both research and planning. Convey is a nice word to use. C-O-N-V-E-Y, convey, means to send information. Okay? All right. Well done. Okay, this is what I wrote. So, following testing, the production process moves in order to packaging, dispatch, and sales. I think I'm going to change the word in order to in sequence, just to be even clearer. Okay, so in sequence to packaging, dispatch, and sales, at which stage feedback is sent not only to market research, but also production planning. All right, good. So we're just moving along brilliantly. Now in market research, you saw that there's feedback going to a couple of other places. So let's check that out. And then we're going to move on. So here we go. Let's see what happens at market research. At market research, we have feedback going to advertising and packaging and design. Okay. All right. So we have 3 places where information is conveyed from market research. So let's keep this simple. I'm going to write a sentence and then you do the same. So market research sends information to packaging, advertising, and design. Okay? So we keep it that simple. All right? So market research is responsible for conveying information back to packaging, advertising, and design. All right. Now, we have one more element here, which is kind of unique. It's product research. And product research is only responsible for the flow of manufacturing process to the design team. Okay? So let's do that. Watch how I do this one. Okay. So Finally, the sole responsibility of product research is to send products to design. Okay. All right. And instead of products, I can say something like merchandise if I don't want to repeat. Okay. All right. So everybody doing good so far? Now, notice that our essay, it's probably well into the word limit. Let me just check here. Okay. Yeah, so right now, with this overview and with the description that I have here, or with the analysis, I'm at 140 words. So I'm 10 words shy of 150. So what should I do? And I see a lot of you writing sentences. That's great. I want to get this essay done, and I want to get to another important point here. So I have 140 words. So I'm not quite there yet. So Abhishek says it's probably a good idea to throw in some kind of a summary. Milland, it's not a conclusion, okay? Conclusions are for persuasive essays. That's a task 2 essay. For expository essays, write a summary. If you're not sure, Milland, on what the difference is, look it up. There's a difference between a summary and a conclusion. They're not the same type of paragraph, okay? So saying in summary or in conclusion is not the same idea. When you conclude, Milland, then you're generating some kind of a take-home message or concept based on the information or argument. When you're writing a summary, you only express a concise, shortened version of learned information from the information provided. Okay? I know it's a little confusing, but there's definitely a clear difference between a summary and a conclusion. Okay? So summary, yeah, let's do that. That'll make up the last 20 words. So to sum up, okay, what can we summarize about this? So what can we summarize about this flowchart once we've looked at it all? Okay, what do you think is a logical... What do you think is a logical summary about these 14 stages that we kind of just went through? Okay, what did we learn about it? I think I definitely recognize something interesting that I learned. Hopefully some of you saw that also. So think about if you're in a business class and you're looking at this type of a flow chart, and your professor says, so okay, you've looked at this flow chart, we just discussed it. What can you summarize about it? What has become clear about Spark's incorporated manufacturing process of electronics? All right. So Samuel Sadir says, overall, it's clear that the manufacturing of electronic goods involves numerous steps which, when work in unison, produce the required electronic devices. Almost, Samuel. Millen says, to sum up, a clear flow of production process and information passed at different levels can be seen. Yeah, Millen, very close, okay? Beckjan says, to sum up, by looking at this flow, it can be observed that the manufacturing stages of an electronic products are complex. That's true too. What I've figured out from this is, to sum up, there are numerous points in these 14 components where information is fed back in order to ensure the smooth operation of Sparks Inc. Okay, so for me, what was most interesting is noticing that you have a lot of these blue feedback loops, especially from market research, which obviously send information to these different stages so that this process can operate smoothly at Sparks Incorporated. Does that make sense? So it's the feedback that makes this company work efficiently, right? So if there's some kind of a problem, obviously we don't want to assume information, but we can kind of think about this. If there's a problem at some stage, or somebody has a great idea, then they're able to connect with a different stage or step in the process to ensure the development and the smooth operation of the company. Okay, that's why you have all these blue arrows, right? You have to ask yourself, why all these blue arrows, right? Okay, so there's the essay. I'm going to post the essay on our YouTube community posts. Okay, so you're going to be able to see it there later on. And right now, hopefully you remembered that it's really important to be concise. Okay, you want to make sure that you include a lot of linking words. Make sure that it makes sense. And again, practice this with a lot of passive voice. Okay. All right, everyone. All of you watching, thank you for attending. Thank you, members. Coming up in about 30 minutes, roughly, I will host a class for listening, continuing from yesterday, parts 3 and parts 4. We'll do some practice. We'll do some strategy, and hopefully I'll see all of you there. Again, for everybody watching, check us out at aehelp.com for academic IELTS. Spend a couple dollars, save yourself stress, time, get high band scores. gieltshelp.com for general IELTS students. I'll be back in 30 minutes. That's it for now. Bye.